Hi, this is Karl Catarata, and this is Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast.
Welcome to Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast. I'm your host, Will Rucker, and I am so excited that you are joining me for today's episode. This season has been so incredible so far, and I'm just really excited about today's guest and what this individual will bring to the conversation. We've been talking about making this community, the Las Vegas Valley, compassionate. We've talked about our resolution and making that resolution a reality. So today we have the privilege of talking to a younger member of our community, which is still weird for me to say because I still think I'm his age. But we're talking to a younger member of our community about all the amazing things that he's doing and his vision for the future of our amazing community. Welcome to the podcast, Karl.
Thank you so much, Will. I'm excited to be here and excited to share messages of hope and compassion and peace to folks in the Las Vegas Valley.
Yeah, your story is so incredible. And every time I talk to you, you're doing something new and different. I can't keep up, just to be frank. I cannot, because you're doing so much. But everything that you do, number one, is compassionate. And of course, I love that. But also, a lot of what you're doing is really pushing the envelope forward and creating true change within our community, and even the way that we just think about the things we think about. So if you could give us just high points of what you're working on right now, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah. And thank you again, Will, for allowing me to be on the podcast. I'm very honored. I know that this podcast brings together, like-minded and leaders in the Las Vegas Valley when it comes to communicating the message on what we can do better to improve our community. So I'm very grateful and I'm very blessed to join you on this Sunday morning to just talk about what we can do to continue improving the Las Vegas Valley. Some items that I'm working on currently in my young stead as a 23-year-old is and I'll go into the different projects. Right now we are still attempting to exit the coronavirus pandemic, right? With the Delta variant increased across the Las Vegas Valley. We are trying to get more young people vaccinated and ensuring that, myths and misinformation are not a thing when it comes to why young people should get a vaccination, or making sure that we get our community safe. Number two, what I'm currently working on is I had the opportunity to be moved from a youth commissioner to the chairman of the Nevada Commission on Mentoring. And the Nevada Commission on Mentoring is essentially this statewide commission focused and honed in when it comes to mentorship standards and mentorship across the state of Nevada. So whenever you think about an internship program or mentorship based organization in Nevada, I have the opportunity to make sure that they get the resources and the best advocacy available to them, to making sure that their mission is successful in the Silver State. And I guess the third thing that I'm working on is, I'm a big believer in young people, right? Nevada is a small community. I know that one of my mentors, who is also a former Jameson Fellow and also was on the Compassion Las Vegas podcast, mentions that, there are only a couple hundred of folks you can just put in the palm of your hand in regards to their names, right? And they essentially help influence decisions, and they also help influence making good on the promise to keep Southern Nevada, right? Positive, and making sure that we continue to move forward in a direction that continues to assist the vulnerable communities, working families, and so many communities in our state. So those are the three things that I'm working on. And I know that viewers are listening in. Again, my name is Karl, or I'll refer to myself as Karl with a K, because it's with a K, not a C. And, my background is I was born and raised in East Las Vegas, Nevada, to two immigrant parents. My dad was in the military, and he really worked his way through getting through this community. And now he works at the city. My mom is a teacher in the school district, and she really honed in the skills for me and my younger brother to ensure that we continue to fight for other people in our community. So I'm very grateful to be here on the podcast, and I hope I can, my story helps inspire or helps guide or helps share different skills to other young folks willing to, step up and put change out on the table here in our state. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I feel like we could just cut the episode there, post it, and everyone would feel much more enlightened and hopeful just based on those tidbits of what you're doing. Because a lot of times we don't hear everything that's happening. We hear about the bad things, and we see that so much that it's hard to understand, like, there are young people in our community that are really doing amazing things. And then to bring in the piece about the immigration, you know how polarizing that can be. But here's someone that is the child of immigrants that is working on our community as a whole to make it a better place for all of us. So just those little pieces, I think we're off to a fantastic start. So I didn't really want to dive into COVID because we spent a whole season on that. But because it's still here, still unbelievably here, I do want to ask, how are you experiencing just the impact of the shutdown and now attempting to reopen safely, but all the misinformation, as you mentioned, and now it's even more polarized than ever? How is that experience for you? And also throw in how you're seeing other young people deal with it. Yeah.
And so we don't have to go all in, because I know I listened to the podcast and the whole season was specifically focused on COVID, right? So I guess I could share what I learned, right? What I really learned from the pandemic as a young person, having the opportunity to be able to work at the city of Las Vegas in local municipal government, who was responsible during the pandemic to ensuring that people not only got vaccinated, but businesses remained open, right? And also our communities were healthy, right? We are the center of tourism with Clark County and the city of Las Vegas, and we have a responsibility, right, to tourists and to residents and locals and guests and you name it. So I guess when it comes to the pandemic, I mean, how I was impacted was, as a young person, this, again, I think many people must remember, right, that Gen Z and the younger generation, post-millennial, as a Gen Zer myself, I'm the older piece of Gen Z, have been dealing with different tragedies and different senses, right? And not to mention that other generations haven't, but for Gen Z, we're seeing that there's a continual adaptation and the flexibility of trying to adapt to this, right? When we were, and also for Gen Z, we're also we're cognizant right now, right? We had to adapt to the different standards that not only government, but also where the country was moving in the time, not only with the political divide, but also where our communities were at, right? I know that during the last epidemic or pandemic, just to name it, we had better equipped resources under former administration. I think it was like Ebola, it was Ebola, influenza. And though when it came to that, Gen Zers were still in school, right? We were still in school. Now that we're in college, we're making adult decisions. Like we have had to adapt and make adult decisions.
Is that political divide that you mentioned, is that present in your age group, or is that something that is really just the older generation dealing with?
I think that it is the pandemic and the switching of the transition of one administration to the other has definitely brought in a sense of engagement when it comes to young folks, right? You ask any young person out on the street, they're at least aware. They're at least aware of where government is at, right? They are at least in tune. They're at least in tune. We might not be, honed in on like the Fox News, the CNN, but we see it on social media. It just pops up on social media, or it matriculates into conversations at you name it, parties, grocery stores, family, at the table, where else where young people are at, getting sushi, Dutch Bros, in post-secondary work opportunities, internships, trainings, that type of feeling, that type of culture is prominent, both if young people identify as Democrat or Republican. There is just that feeling. There is that feeling. And of course, the pandemic highlighted that.
That makes sense. And I like the way that you carefully crafted that. That was amazing. So where I want to go around the vaccine effort is you're working with young people to get them vaccinated. Recently, a major pop star or hip hop star made a tweet around this subject, bringing in a vaccination from a country that's not even using the same vaccine we use. And it sparked some major issues. And of course, even a call from the White House. Do you see that celebrities are influencing this in a way we haven't seen in medical work before? Or what are you really seeing as you're helping to get young people vaccinated?
I guess the main thing that what I advocated as we are continuing on with vaccinations is, influence is a powerful thing. Like having the opportunity to influence is a powerful thing. And, at the city, right? At the city, having the influence, and I will just name it, right? When it came to during the pandemic, when it came to making sure businesses were either open and they were abiding by certain criteria or regulation to keep their customers and Southern Nevada healthy, or they would be at risk of their business license being revoked. That is influence, right? That's influence at the local level. There is also that influence at the national level. We saw when it came to the White House, bringing celebrities to have the opportunity to spread messages of the vaccine process. So, seeing that, I had essentially had the opportunity to work with local elected officials, both here in Clark County and the city of Las Vegas, to create a young person vaccination-based campaign, because I was seeing that, young people are only going to listen if they are influenced, right? When it comes to, young toddlers on iPads that we see now walking around, or when it comes to those in K through 12 or those in college right now, influence is a powerful tool. Influence is a powerful tool. And I think that, as you mentioned, there was a celebrity recently on the news that had mentioned some myths and some misinformation about the vaccine, but it just only highlights the importance of how influence is so powerful, right? Because I would wonder how many folks saw that from that specific celebrity and said, okay, well, this is a valid thought. I'm going to utilize this when I speak to family, friends, people in the community. Why I probably won't wear, maybe people might say why I probably won't wear a mask going into a business, right? So that type of information is just dangerous. It is dangerous, and it has a lot of influence. And when we recognize and we understand that that level of influence has the power to be able to create actions and decisions, that's when we really need to, we just need to be practical, and we also need to be compassionate when it comes to, having those tough conversations, We saw that the White House gave the celebrity a phone call. We saw the White House gave the celebrity a phone call and actually did decide to sit down and offered to sit down with medical and healthcare professionals to communicate the research-based, evidence-based facts when it came to it. And that's the same thing that we need to do when it comes to not only young folks, but our communities in Southern Nevada. If we know that influence is a powerful tool, let us continue to utilize that influence to better our communities.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the big things that reminds me of what generation I'm actually a part of is when I talk to people your age who don't know what life is like without internet and really, grew up with social media, whereas Facebook for me was a college platform. And it's like you had to have a college ID to get in or a college email, and it just was used very, very differently. And so the way that it's used to influence now is so different. And especially with now TikTok, which I didn't get when it first launched, but now I'm like a TikToker. I love it. Just the creativity that comes out and how you have to be so concise with your messaging. But what it allows is, in a sense, a democratization of influence, where an election is typically how you gain influence in a community. Now, elected officials are, excuse the term, but like bowing down to celebrities in order to have them really share the influence, because that's who people, particularly young people, are looking towards. I know that with fundraising, the story of one is more powerful than the story of many when you're trying to get people to give. And so I'm seeing this happening with people sharing those one-off anecdotes that may or may not be true with their circle. And it carries so much more weight than the millions and millions and millions of people who have been vaccinated with no incident at all, or very, very mild side effects. So it's just fascinating for me to watch just the world unfold and change and evolve with technology at the center.
Correct. Yeah. And I guess to piggyback on that, and anyone listening into the podcast, is that, yeah, social media is a very powerful tool when it comes to influence. And I remember when I was, and I guess I'll tell a story. I remember when I was a freshman in high school, and I was interning for Clark County when at the time, our current Governor Steve Sisolak, was the commission chair at the county. And I remember when, I was working there as a public communications intern. And, Clark County has a more older demographic of workforce. And I identify as a young person then. When it comes to social media, we knew that Facebook and communications were powerful tools, right? But this was still when Twitter was still new, right? And now we have TikTok, right? So you're completely right, is that social media can be both a blessing and a curse, right? If we use social media in a productive manner, in a productive light, to help influence good decision-making, healthy decision-making processes, and also good civic engagement, then we're able to build a more informed community, a more informed, I would say, civilization, right? I believe Congress puts money into education for a reason, right? A more well-educated citizenry is best for a healthy democracy. But we can also see the ills of social media, right? We can see the ills of I don't even want to name all the ills. I think viewers know it best, right? But when we utilize social media in a good way, when we utilize social media in a good way, which is good civic engagement, good research-based items, and also good action, making sure folks take action from seeing just something on social media, then we can really get somewhere. And I think that you had mentioned it, right? When it comes to the internet, social media is such a fast-moving thing, right? We see now, and I make the comparison, and I'll stop here. We make the comparison. More of my older colleagues, they do have trouble when it comes to saving a PDF or trying to operate the computer, which is fine, because when they grew up, and again, this is the compassionate thing, right? When they grew up, they did not have these tools. These tools were still in the process of being built, right? Apple was releasing iPhone by iPhone. When now we see babies literally on an iPad able to open the iPad, and then just be able to interact with them. And when I mean babies, I mean toddlers or folks in K through 12, right? So we see this generational divide. How can we, I guess the question really is, when it comes to issues and making sure our communities are healthy and moving in a productive and forward fashion, how can we understand this divide to better influence our actions or decisions here in the Silver State?
Well, I think you nailed it with just the awareness that it exists and that the most productive response is compassion. I have some older employees on my team who do struggle with technology and trying to save signatures on PDFs because we went completely remote. So they didn't have access to like an office scanner and copier where they were accustomed to physically signing and scanning to send documents in. So that was a learning curve. And all of us were learning something. And I think that there's so much value in experience. And oftentimes, I've always been a forward-thinking individual, so, cutting edge of everything. And I also was essentially raised by my great-grandmother. So, I had both parents, but they worked. So she was my babysitter, and I spent summers with her. But, that 60-year or so age difference really taught me a great respect for, again, life experience and the wisdom that only comes with experience. A college degree can't give you life experience. And not to, say that a college degree is not valuable, because it absolutely is. It's a different type of information, though. So with this whole circle, I think the awareness that we are all in need of information we don't have. We all don't know what we don't know, and we can all learn from each other, I think, is so critical for us. You are part of the 2020 Jameson Fellowship, which, for those that don't know, Compassionate Las Vegas offers a program to community leaders to really learn how to engage in collective impact in building circles of trust. And so in 2020, you were one of the members of that cohort and one of the younger members. So just tell me about that experience, and what did you take away, and what are you using from that in bridging some of these divides we're talking about?
Yeah, and thank you for bringing up the Jameson Fellowship. It was a very, very beneficial experience, and anyone listening to the podcast today, I hope that you can look into signing up or applying for the Jameson Fellowship. Or I'm pretty sure Will also have my social media handles. I can definitely be a testimony to the Jameson Fellowship, and many elected officials. I know that my colleagues, Councilman Knudsen, went through the fellowship as well, right? So I think when it comes to the fellowship, I know that I was one of the younger folks of the cohort. I had the opportunity to be in a room with leaders, nonprofit executives, corporate executives, folks who are working in government, folks who are working out in the community, when it comes to bettering the community. And there were so many issues in the room. There were so many good issue-based advocacy items in the room, like folks who were advocating for good things like immigration, foster care. Well, that's what I mean by issues, right?
Well, there were issues too, so we won't skate past that, but keep going.
Well, there's also, and those issues were productive, though. Those issues were productive, right? Because it really allowed folks to know that everyone's trying to do good. Everyone's trying to do good. Everyone has an agenda. But that agenda, when it comes to the agenda, we just need to make sure how we can collaborate on these agendas to better Southern Nevada, right? I really think, as a young person, I really do think about the fact that everybody has their own thing that they want, right? What can we do to make sure folks get a little piece of what they can accomplish so that we can move the needle forward in creating the community that we would like, right? I know that folks in healthcare talk about how they would like Southern Nevada to be more of like Seattle, right? Or like a medical thing for the LGBTQ community. Folks would love if like downtown Vegas was more like West Hollywood, right? So we have these types of potential that we would, the community would like to see, but we're not able to get there until we, as I mentioned, right, we learn about each other's issues and each other's differences. And I think during the Jameson Fellowship, I was able to really see that. And I was really able to see that compassion at the end of the day. If you are compassionate in your work, you get so much more, just get so much more done, right? I remember I was in the fellowship during my time when I was working as a district representative for U.S. Congresswoman Susie Lee. And at the time, it was a very divisive time. It was a very divisive time under administration that did not value information, And, what does that mean for young folks that are caught in the middle? What does that mean for our communities in the middle, right? During the fellowship, I was able to reconnect with leaders that, their mission is to be compassionate and to give back to the community. And you had mentioned that collective impact. For me, I had the opportunity to have a journey, right? From working in the federal government, now working at the city, seeing the differences between these two large entities, the federal government and local city municipality. I think the largest thing that I've learned, is that you get more done. You get more done with honey than vinegar, right?
Yes.
You get more done by being compassionate and being kind with one another. And I think the city's motto is kind, committed, smart, right? Being kind to residents and being kind to each other and our decision-making process, committed, making sure that, times will get tough. Times will always get tough. We saw that with the 2008 recession, and now we're seeing this with the pandemic. We are committed to our work and we're smart, right? Smart not only in our decision-making skills, but smart about how we impact each other. And I think that when it comes to the city's motto of kind, committed, smart, I also think about the city's line of building community to make life better, because we really do need to build this community if we wish to move forward. And I think we have made significant improvements and significant changes, even when we were in a pandemic.
Yeah, and what you sparked for me is my view of a good leader is one that I disagree with fairly often. And so the reason I say that is, for me, a good leader is considering all impacted persons. And so my perspective, my viewpoint is based on my particular situation and position. And it's not my job as a citizen to think about everybody else. It really is. We'll get to that in a bit. But for me, I'm just thinking like through my little lens with the information I have. And a good leader is considering my situation, my neighbor's situation, person across the town, and the businesses that are involved. For us tourists, how does this impact tourism and the international community? And so some decisions will have to be made that are best for the collective that I don't necessarily think are best for me. And that's just part of really growing and really learning how it is to function in a body. Sometimes you have to do things for your lungs, for example, that, your mouth or nose doesn't really like. You have to take medicine that tastes bad, but it makes you better. And I think of that the same way with a good leader. They're giving us all the medicine. It might taste bad, but it's going to make us better. It's going to make us stronger. It's going to heal whatever's ailing us. And candidly, I think that that's hard. And I know in my capacity with, the various organizations I'm a part of, people disagree with me. And I'm learning to be okay with that. I won't say that I'm okay with it yet, because my goal is really to ensure everyone is heard and feels heard, which can be very different. But I do want to make decisions that are the best for all involved and not just a small segment, which can be hard when there's a small segment that is incredibly vocal. And that's what I want to get to now. What is your perspective on how we can really learn to just listen? I think that you do a really, really good job of listening and translating. And so how can we be better at that as a community?
Yeah, people do say that I am able to translate even if sorry, it's dog.
We love the dogs. That's amazing.
I think so. Two things. I have two favorite quotes, and my two favorite quotes that I've lived by, and I think it's going to live with me until I'm lower down into my grave. is number one, common ground is the work, is the unfinished work that free people face, right? Making sure that we find common ground on issues is a difficult challenge. And I think that, whether that's in relationships, whether that's in friendships, whether that's in work, finding common ground is unfinished work. And it's a continued work that needs to be always upkeep, right? It's like, cleaning a house. You always have to keep cleaning. You always have to keep cleaning. You always have to keep sanitizing. You have to, put the stuff in the washer, wash the dishes. It's upkeep. You always have to keep on considering other people's inputs, either in the workplace, with family, with friends, because at the end of the day, as a free people, right, living in a democracy, we have so many different ideas, so many different decisions, so many different perspectives, so many different parts of walked life, right? That we need to consider. That's the first quote that I live by. And the second quote that I live by is, even though that we can disagree, we can still be kind to one another. And I think that is those two quotes that I operate by. Is any single time I walk into the room, any single time that I might, be with somebody on, walking down the street, or at the grocery store that I might disagree with. If I'm wearing a mask and someone is not wearing a mask in the store, having the courage and having the compassion to be like, hey, where's your mask? Like, may I ask where your mask is? Like, it's clearly on the door, but also operating in that quote of, common ground is the challenge free people face. So this is a challenge right now. What are we going to do to fix this? And oftentimes when I actually do talk to somebody in the store, which is a completely random person, I have had the opportunity to, get them to put a mask on, as stubborn as they could be. Right. I actually, and this is very off track. So whoever's listening to this podcast, good luck. Good luck. I work with bonsai. Bonsai live for years. They live for years. They live longer than human life. And bonsai, is a stubborn type of plant. You have to literally utilize wire to move it in a specific direction. It will free and flow. And that is something that I think about when it comes to those two quotes, is that, we do have ills as humans. We all have qualities as humans, sometimes stubbornness, sometimes unwillingness, and sometimes lived characteristics that are different than each other. So how do we really hone in on how we can influence each other to making good and healthy decisions? And with those two quotes, as I had mentioned, and to answer your question, right, as we're moving forward past this pandemic, what can we do to better influence each other and better make sure that we are still kind to one another, even if we genuinely disagree? And I honestly think that, when it comes to arguments that I have with family, friends, or in the workplace, I always operate with compassion, and I always operate with kindness and fairness. I think the other day somebody called me very principled, and it made me feel a little bit, it made me feel very like I need to go to a bookstore or something, like, because I need to go to law school immediately. Is a skill, right? Being principled is a skill, and being kind and compassionate are skills that I would much rather be known for than being principled or being fair. But
how do you define compassion?
Yeah, I would define compassion as, look, if we're going to disagree, and if I might not understand your perspective, I'm not going to invalidate it, right? I see where you're coming from, and I see that this is something that you're putting into the space of time, right? That you're putting this into the space of time. We're only on this earth for 100 years as human beings, right? So whatever you're telling me or whatever you're acting or behaving, it's valid. It's how you're operating in the space. And by that, number one, I need to respect it. And number two, how am I going to operate with you? And how am I going to respectfully disagree? Or how am I going to work with you to get to a specific point, right? And I think that is something very, in our current politics, very void. And I think that as a young person, I think it can be very void because of the fact that, everyone has their own agenda, everyone has their own issue. And to be very practical, right, everyone wants their own thing, right? But if we start, or I wouldn't rather say start, if we continue on with making sure that we are compassionate to one another, understanding and being empathetic to each other's struggles, each other's backgrounds, each other's challenges, right? We can better ourselves to not only influence one another well, but also move towards one another well. I think that one of the things that I have the opportunity to serve on is it's the No Labels Caucus. It is No Labels is a organization across the United States that brings together young people when it comes to a bipartisan agenda. And one of the things that is operating in that agenda is, listening and being compassionate with one another.
Wow. You see, when I say I can't keep up with you, this is why. You've given me yet another thing that you are doing that is super cool, super important. And I just really love the fact that you are really saying that compassion is believing that every person and their experience is valid and showing kindness and respect because of that. Like, that's fantastic. So this No Labels group, what do you focus on, or where's that based? Tell me more about it.
Yeah, No Labels. No Labels. It's so folks know that there's the Problem Solvers Caucus for Congress, which is a bipartisan group of legislators in Congress that come together when it comes to issues of like infrastructure, agriculture, immigration, so on and so forth. When it comes to issues that impact everyday Americans, and No Labels is like the nonprofit piece to it.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to be just a youth leader, a part of it. While we don't meet like a lot, we only meet like once a month. We still operate with compassion. And I think that more of my older colleagues in politics can understand is that, again, you get more done with honey than vinegar. Sometimes vinegar is a thing. It's there, right? But we can get more done with honey. And I think that I have not met somebody that I have disagreed with when it comes to operating from a form of compassion, because at the end of the day, what fills your cup, right? I think that what I've learned from the hundreds of constituent phone calls that I've had working in Congress, the 100 constituent phone calls I've had at the city of Las Vegas, is that when you are faced with, and I think folks in customer service can also know this, right? Or they already know this too, right? Is when you're faced with an angry constituent asking you to pass a bill on immigration, or you're faced with an angry constituent asked to seal up the cracks on their street in the city or in the county, responding and understanding where they're coming from. It's their neighborhood, it's their community, it's their issue, it's their family. Knowing that, responding with compassion, first of all, and just to be practical, gets them off of the phone easily, gets them off easily so that you can continue on with your job. And number two is you're able to get that, problem fixed. So just being a good listener and being able to be compassionate are just different tools and skills that we can utilize as we continue moving forward to better our state and everyone and all the other neighboring states across.
Yeah, because we're all connected. I mean, look at our water supply, right? We're really learning how connected we are, even outside of the state. One thing that I really appreciate about you is you really are a mentor for me. And I think anyone over 30 needs an under 30 mentor. And so every time I talk, whether it's at the coffee shop or, whatever we're doing, I learn something new and I am able to see a different perspective because of what you share. How are you bringing that same skill set to Nevada at large through your mentoring work?
Yeah. So it's Sunday. Last week, we actually had the Commission on Mentoring. I had the opportunity to partner up with the Gwynn Center and Nevada 95, which is a youth network of other young leaders. While I am a young person, I know that I cannot do this work by myself. So I need other young people in this work with me. So that is the reason why we partnered up with Nevada 95, which is a youth network who are high school students, beginning in high school and also leaving high school as well. And we had the opportunity to speak with State Treasurer Zach Conine when it came to where American Rescue Plan funds should go to. And it also kind of brought in a little bit of where the upcoming legislature should also focus on when it comes to youth priorities. We had the opportunity to speak with the Gwynn Center and the State Treasurer on what things are actually possible, right? Because I also know that there sometimes youth voices can be, criticized and diminished sometimes. So it's important to really put the issue on the table and say, look, young people are a part of our community. As we can see with our education system, right? What specific topics do they need, and what can we actually invest in? So when it came to that discussion, we had the opportunity to talk about like post-secondary training, mental health for folks transitioning from high school to college, internship and job opportunities, food insecurity, and also housing when it comes to young folks, because we know that we know that things are getting expensive, right? So when it comes to the mentorship piece, I know that you had mentioned that I serve as a good mentor to you, and I hope I can serve as a good mentor to other folks, right? And through the Mentoring Commission, we continue on with making sure that organizations in Southern Nevada get the resources and the talent that they need to better improve our community. Along with the mentorship landscape, I agree, right? Everybody needs a good mentor. Everybody needs a good mentor, or have the opportunity to touch the life of a mentee, and to be able to share their story, right? Share their story, share their lived experience, and share what skills they've learned. Because at the end of the day, and maybe, I don't know if this is my third quote that I always utilize when I get a little wise or I get on my little soapbox, is that, we're only here for a limited time. Like, we're only here for a limited amount of time. We only live for 100 years. We're in our positions in a good democracy. We're only here in our positions for a limited amount of time. So that means that we have work to do. We have people to see. We have things to accomplish. We have things to do, and we have things to improve, right? Life is only so short. So I think that when it comes to mentorship and compassion, I hope that I can continue to be a good mentor to you, and also be a good mentor to the other young folks in our continued work for making sure that everyone is connected to good mentorship in the state.
Yeah, well, you keep getting involved and you keep staying involved, which I love. One of the things that we're working on with our fellowship, the Jameson Fellowship, is ensuring every fellow stays a fellow. Once you're a fellow, you're a fellow for life. And we also want you to be active and involved and helping to, again, mentor others through the program. So you are doing that. And I just want to say thank you for that. One other thing I want to just highlight in this moment is, as much as I value experience, I also value inexperience, because young people haven't been told no as much yet. They haven't failed as much yet. They haven't learned the rules necessarily yet. And so for a younger individual, more things seem possible than for someone that has been jaded by life or just, life experience. So I love being able to tap into that energy and saying, no, what do you think we can actually do? Tell me what you think, because I'll worry about the details. Give me your ideas. And I want to see it through your eyes, because they're fresh, and there's an innocence of youth, of course, but there's also an imagination of youth. And so I love, love, love that, and appreciate you bringing that to the conversation and to our city. My last set of questions is a little more fun, right? I want to hear what's on your playlist. Like, what songs are you listening to keep you up and to inspire you? And if you had to pick one that kind of summarizes your vision for Las Vegas, what would that be?
Oh, geez, I'm gonna have to open up my my Spotify. Open up my Spotify. Folks know, and maybe this is because I always tweet about it or post about it. I'm a big fan of Mac Miller. Mac Miller, unfortunately, passed away from us a couple of years ago. I'm a big fan of Mac Miller. I'm a big fan of 21 Pilots. I'm a big fan of Bastille, and maybe it's because of the fact that many of the songs that they have talk about God. They actually talk about God and existence. Many people don't know that, even if they rap, and it's about pop and hip hop or indie, right? I guess the song that I would do, I guess, and maybe it's just in honor because of the fact that it has been 3 years since Mac Miller has passed away. He's an amazing rapper. My favorite song is Cinderella. It is very inappropriate but the song is Cinderella. And one of the reasons why it is Cinderella is because of the fact that there's a line at the end of the song, which talks about love. It talks about love, and it talks about how love is still possible. And I think we all need to experience a good brush of love in our life, and to feel loved and to be loved and to be seen by love. And I think that Mac Miller's Cinderella does accomplish all of those in the 3 different verses that it does. And I listen to Cinderella at least once a week. Once a week, I actually yell it in my car. So if you see me in the city, if in the city vicinity, yelling in my car, it is probably because I'm yelling to that song. And I guess to my older colleagues listening to this podcast, it is very inappropriate. So please don't around children. It is not safe for work. So.
Got you. Well, then I won't put that as the background music for this show. We'll keep it to our iPods. Your fairy god person greets you and says, "Here's your wish. What are you wishing for?" And particularly around maybe roadblocks or problems you've encountered in the city that you really like to fix.
Ooh, you got deep right there. You got deep right there. So my mentor was the late, great Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson. Yeah. And I miss him every day because I remember every single, of course, he was busy with the legislature. He was a busy man. He was God's man, right? He was doing the work. And I remember when I first started off in politics, he would always bring me out to Makers and Finders. Makers and Finders is a local coffee shop in downtown Vegas. We would also meet sometimes at Vesta Coffee, which is also another coffee business in downtown Vegas, which 2 of the businesses, my favorite small businesses in Vegas. And if my fairy godparent, which I think is Tyrone, because he really did impart many of the political wisdoms that I have today. I really do wish that I was able to have him as a mentor. I was just able to have him as a mentor. If he was able to give me something, I just wish that he was just still here with us, just because of the fact that he was so wise. He was way beyond his years as an older mentor to me. I think that would be one thing that I would wish.
Yeah, there's a song way before your time, but Abraham, Martin, and John. And I often think of adding Abraham, Martin, John, and Tyrone because he really was a giant in that respect. But there's a line in that song that says, "The good die young." And in his case, he did leave way, way too soon. But his legacy certainly lives on through you and through the work that he was able to move forward in our city. And even just who he inspired, we don't even know yet the full extent of his impact. So I miss him too. And thank you for that fond memory of an incredible human being. Well, Karl, thank you for your time. I feel like this is just scratching the surface. There's just so much to cover and to get into, but I hope that people follow you on is it Twitter? Is that right?
Twitter, social media, it's Karl, Karl, and last name Catarata, Catarata. For those listening, please don't text and drive. I make the joke that that sometimes I do text and drive. So, but please try to be safe if you're listening to this on the road or on a road trip. Thank you again, Will, for having me. And feel free to follow the current work that I like to communicate the work that we're doing for the Mentoring Commission, and also for getting more young people vaccinated, hopefully past the pandemic. I do not have to tweet about how many more young people got vaccinated, but I'll be tweet. I always tweet about things that Vegas needs to continually improve in a very civil and respectful way and thoughtful way, right? So please feel free to follow me there. And I really do, again, appreciate the time here today to communicate the message of compassion and how we can utilize compassion in the spaces of work in Southern Nevada.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Karl. And thank you, our listening and viewing audience, for your continued support and engagement with Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast. We have so much more in store for you in this, our third season. I cannot believe we're in season 3 already, but this, our third season. Just keep on keeping on. And as I always remind you, you are not just a drop in the ocean. No, you are the entire ocean in a drop. And what you do matters. So live compassionately. I'll see you next time.